Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 17 of Tactical Crouch. Another good one for you. We've had some good ones in the past. We had Sideshow join us, talk about his power rankings. D-Pay, head coach of the LA Gladiators this week. And then now we have the Duke. I'm going to call him the Duke of competitive Overwatch, but also the Duke of Vancouver, the Van Dukter. It's Harsha.
Jesus.
Yeah, Harsha coming back. And Harsha, I mean, we've chatted a few times. We were talking before the show. We've done some live. I think we've done some pre-recorded. We've obviously talked in Discord and stuff. But, man, it's just awesome to have you here. I'm a little bit bummed to not have you in San Francisco since I'm in San Jose now, which is just, just my luck. But,
Happens.
It's really good to have you on the show. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a long time. And then Yiska's like, why don't we ask you? And I'm like, oh, yeah.
It's weird how much easier it is to get these big names when you don't have Volamel, persona non grata by the league. It's like super easy to get them now. Weird.
Yeah, they're lining up. It's weird.
Don't tell him, but I wouldn't have come on if Volamel was on this show.
Oh, good thing he doesn't even listen to the show. So we're good. Volamel, listen to the show. Besides that, really good to have you. Pumped for you in Vancouver, coaching over there. Took some really badass headshots there you can see on the stream. I mean, man, look at that guy. I don't want to fight that guy. But
yeah, that looks like an MMA, like
yeah, dude.
Pre-fight.
What happened?
Turns out lighting can do that. Professional lighting.
Professional lighting. Although that bed in the background, I know we keep joking about it, but that's why you're the Duke of Vancouver, man, is that bed. It's just like...
you can't really hide it, actually.
No, it's too big. It's too majestic. It really
is it dragons, or what is it there?
I think they're... No.
Is it
they're like cherubs.
It's like cherubs.
Yeah, I think they're cherubs.
That was actually the second Vancouver franchise name, is the Vancouver Cherubs. They didn't run it. They kept the same logo though, so whatever. Go for it, I guess. Way to go. But yeah, man. I mean, let's catch up a little bit. We've had a long off season for you. I mean, you've been out of the I don't know, out of the loop, not the loop, but
yeah, in and out, as we'd say.
Yeah, in and out, as we say in California about everything. What have you been up to? I mean, what's been going on?
That's when you press your button, by the way.
The butts?
Just for no reason. Just.
I do need to I'm just gonna make it so that we just hear Harsha say butts.
Butts. Butts.
There we go.
Jesus.
That's just gonna be a thing now.
Is it hard to go from an off season where from like a season where it's like a lot of work and then it dies down for a while and you go on vacation or whatever, and then to ramp it up back again? Almost like...
For me, it was weird because we did tryouts for both Shock and NRG, and I was still on the team at the time, of course. So I spent obviously the whole season working, and then we took a 3-week break, and then came back and immediately did trials. So we were, after Boston, we were the second team, I guess, to do trials. And so those days were pretty long as well. I think 6 to 8 hours a day of just watching scrims back to back to back, because there weren't breaks between the blocks during trials.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I had a pretty long break for, reasons. So I guess it was kind of weird then because I wasn't really doing anything. I was just talking to teams and seeing what would happen. Yeah, I mean, it's just been kind of back and forth, but I haven't really had too many extended breaks, I think.
All right. Do you think it's actually practical to have tryouts at the end of after the season concludes? But it's it feels like, don't you want to have the talent that is available when it is the most relevant? So even some teams are scrimming right now and trying to get some more hires. Do you think that's even practical?
It's like a trade-off, right? Because you are giving up first access to these picks. So in theory, if you see someone that's mechanically really good, you want to just go get them right away because it's most likely that they'll continue to be good, especially if they're a younger prospect, right? Whereas if you wait, you might get someone that's more relevant to the next metagame, or to whatever comes out whenever Overwatch League starts or whatever it is. But you're also giving up priority in a sense. And I think that in general, just because metagames change a lot, right? So it's not like GOATS is going to stick around forever, or it's not like whatever is going on right now is going to stick around forever. So metas will change, heroes will like go in and out of favor. Playstyles will come in and out of favor. So I think like it's fine to start scouting early, if that makes sense.
Haven't you heard though that GOATS is actually never going away? Like
I've heard that from
right?
Washington D.C. and Houston Outlaws. Yeah,
and Jeff Kaplan.
And
It's
Jeff Kaplan.
I think he said it in his Christmas address.
I think the things that I heard last week is the first stuff that makes me doubt GOATS will be the overwhelming meta, like 80% plus play rate. I think
probably like 50 to 60% is probably what we're going to be seeing.
Interesting.
And I also think it'll depend on the team. Like some teams will just rely entirely on GOATS. Some teams will probably try and experiment a lot. I know one team in particular don't think we'll play any GOATS. Not sure if that's the right call, but we'll see how it goes.
You can't tell us, can you?
Who it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you who it is.
Fair enough.
Of course not.
Fair enough.
But I mean, a lot of teams actually went to Korea, right? For the pre-season preparation. I honestly wonder if this time around, in this very specific case, that might have not been the best region to practice in. I wonder if, with the assumption that GOATS was going to be at least stage 1 stuff, right? Because from what I heard, especially the European teams are doing very well in terms of GOATS. They have the deepest understanding of it, is what I see. Also, like just comparing like the Contenders Finals series, is like the sophistication or the understanding of the composition. So I wonder that if like a team like, for instance, Paris has a pretty big advantage by having had to scrim in Europe, but also by happenstance being in the region that, tanks in Europe. That's like a match made in heaven, right?
So I think Korea went from being a relatively strong, not the strongest it's ever been, but a relatively strong region during season 2 of Contenders to being like the weakest it's ever been. So I would agree in the sense that, yeah, it probably wasn't the best time to just scrim in Korea, especially when EU looked like what you're saying, Paris. I guess it obviously started with like that French team. I forgot, Eagle Gaming, right? And then EU overall has just been very experienced with GOATS. Like they've been pushing it farther and farther. I think Korea isn't bad per se. Like they've certainly gotten better as the season went on. I thought Runaway had pretty decent GOATS. New Runaway, obviously. But overall, I think Europe probably, if you're having to practice against like Contenders teams or a region in particular, Europe seemed to be the place to go for for like the GOATS meta. It's hard to say because also a lot of the Overwatch League teams just came to America pretty early on. And so the Overwatch League teams obviously have just ridiculous amounts of talent. And so they're always going to be good teams to scrim. They'll always figure it out, whether it's down the road or immediately. But like, I don't think the Contenders teams in America are very strong. So it's kind of like a kind of strange dichotomy, if you will.
Yeah, it is strange that we are seeing this despite, of course, like such a large amount of Contenders NA being academy teams, right? But I guess like if such a severe change in meta happens, yeah, it's interesting how that works out and shakes out. And in the past, I had this idea that because if you have a region that has a lot of talent throughput and also has actual realistic relegation, and I guess that's also a point of contention now, but in the past, where a lot of talent can be filtered in and filtered out without contracts, without, set starting roster slots for Contender seasons, it seems like that almost evolutionary process then provided a pretty good ground for talent to grow. And I mean, depending on how confident you are that GOATS will be useful across a significant portion of the league. I think a lot of teams, especially the ones that have Western involvement, should be looking to a couple of more talents in Europe.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah. So I do want to transition really quick because we have two bones to pick, and it's not with you necessarily, but there have been two kind of ongoing arguments on this show over the past about 4 weeks about our power rankings. I want to talk a little bit about power rankings a little bit, and you tweeted about it earlier today.
I did.
And I hope it wasn't
obviously not applying to this show.
I was going to say, I hope it didn't apply to us.
Oh.
I mean, it might have applied to me a little bit, which, you know what, dude, I'm just the host, okay? So I don't even care. But so there's two questions I wanted to ask you. But first, I want to hear your thoughts on not only our power rankings, but like where you found your biggest discrepancies in your power rankings versus our power rankings.
Let me pull it up, but I'm pretty sure all of you had pretty reasonable power rankings.
Yeah, Valiant 11.
I mean, I don't know what to do with them because I think they have strong coaching that's going to get stronger actually next season for reasons. But they also, I think that their DPS line has been historically their weakest point. Soon was one of the people that adapted best for them, and they lost him. And so I don't really know what to make of them, especially with like the Kareev rumors, if he's going to be DPS or not. I think that still Fate is one of the strongest main tanks in the world. I think Space is really good, if maybe a little bit overrated, just because I didn't think he performed very well in playoffs of last year. Like I honestly thought he played pretty badly in playoffs, but overall throughout the year, he had pretty good performances. So I expect that to just be like kind of like a momentary lapse. Custa and Izayaki should be pretty good. So I guess depending on their DPS, we'll see how the season goes. I think they could, I think a reasonable range to expect for them is probably something like 6 to 12. And I like, it depends on how highly you value the coaching, how highly you don't really like. If GOATS is not going to continue, then maybe they'll struggle a bit more. But during GOATS, I think it's more important to have like just, I guess, good decision making with your Graviton, like high energy, maybe a vocal Brigitte, but not really like any tangible mechanical qualities, I guess.
Yeah.
Any other ones? Any big discrepancies? I mean, probably the big one, right? Because here's the thing: Sideshow split the tie, saying London over, or so not Sideshow. DPay split the tie of London over NYXL for like the higher rated team, assuming that NYXL and London are in your top 2 or 3. I would
say NYXL and London need to be top 2, but what order would I put them in? Oh, that's rough.
So you got number 1, number 2. Who do you think, at the end of the day? And again, we talked a lot about our own kind of methodology for how we put them there, but
so for me, NYXL, and this is obvious when you look at their records from last season, but NYXL is going to be the consistent team, but I don't think their peaks are as high as London, just because, and this is really rare in most games I've noticed, but like London can specifically claim that they have potentially the best player in several different roles, right? So like, I think Gesture, hands down, best main tank in the world. Fury improved. I mean, he changed as a player throughout the season, but during playoffs, I don't think any off tank even came close to him. Like I thought, and even World Cup, I guess, but World Cup's it's not a real tournament, honestly. But I think that Fury's peaks in playoffs are just ridiculous. Like I specifically went back and watched a lot of the London matches. He did not let like a single Orisa mini, what do you call it? Like a halt, the mini Graviton thing. Yeah. He did not let like a single one through. And it's just moments like that where you watch Fury and you see his like matrix usage. I think that's kind of like just one of the insane aspects about him. Obviously Devo's changed, so I don't really know how that'll affect it, but I think that Gesture and Fury legitimately have claims to be the number 1 player in the world at their role. Prophet, obviously, I think between him and Carpe probably are the 2 people you could lay claim to number 1 DPS in the world. Obviously Bedosian is not number 1 because there's Jonak, but could like claim to number 2 in the world. Like if you just look at these peaks, like in terms of individual players and how they played together in the playoffs, this is a team that should, in theory, if they just, are always playing at peak performance, should be the best team in the world. Obviously, they aren't always playing at peak performance, so I guess we'll see. But I think, I really just think it's meta dependent. I think that New York Excelsior is probably more likely to finish ahead of them in the regular season, but I don't know who will win in the playoffs because I think it just really depends on the metagame.
Yeah. So what you're saying is both.
I would say so. Yeah,
50-50.
It sounds like a cop-out answer, right? But I think that
typical Harsha.
Yeah, it is typical Harsha. I think that NYXL will finish above them in the regular season. I'm confident about that.
All right, we're tied again.
My boy.
We're tied again, 3-3. God damn it. Okay. Jeez. We're tied again. We'll have to see who comes on next week. Well, it's going to be Joe next week. I don't think we're going to have a guest next week. And then we're going to go back to the regular crew. So we don't have a tiebreaker. Yeah. Maybe we'll just tweet Nate Nanzer.
Does Joe then count as a guest then? After that?
In my mind, he's just always been a guest.
I should have just said Titan number one.
Titan number. I mean, that's true, right? What else matters? And then
I break your tie.
That kind of does lead us into a less softball question, if you will. Let's be real. That was not a hard hitting question at all. I've got a hard one for you.
Okay.
So obviously, Runaway were probably we're like the big Korean talent to take away in season 2. Again, supposedly a lot of bidding and conversations going around getting those Runaway players, and obviously the team, the community as a whole, very behind Runaway. Like people who follow competitive Overwatch really look up to Runaway. They love the pink sweaters and they love all that other great stuff. So, you've got them. You got him. You did it. People are putting you all over the map. I've seen everything from, Vancouver Titans number 1 to Vancouver Titans number 16. That is 16. The delta. I mean, 16 was stupid. Whoever, I can't even remember who you are. No name person who posted on Reddit, be like, oh, there's 16. Runaway, won in a very diminished career contenders season. Don't get me wrong. I think that's part of why you don't put them number 1. But
I think that just implies a heavy car crash where Haxel loses three fingers. Yeah. And I think that's amoral to predict, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it's kind of one of those things where it's just if someone gives you, it was Kevin in the office who said, if someone gives you 10,000 to 1 on anything,
you always take it.
You always take it.
Yeah.
If John Cougar Mellencamp ever wins an Oscar, I'm going to be rich, right? So it's kind of like one of those things. Fair enough. But, people generally have you guys placed pretty high. And most expansion teams, if you look at the power rankings, have the bulk of the expansion teams rated in the bottom half.
Yeah. I think just from my personal perspective, I think a reasonable ranking would be somewhere between 4 and 8. I think that's probably the most reasonable. Just because, I think we'll be better than all of the other expansion teams for sure. And obviously we're all going to work our hardest to win. We should expect that. But I think if you're looking at it objectively at the beginning of the season, this should be the expansion team that is the highest ranked. I think also, I think 4 to 8 is just a generally reasonable range.
That's fair.
Okay, so that formula of picking up a whole very competitive or like a finals team in Contenders Korea was a thing last year, right? And yes, Lunatic High was already dropping off, and maybe we were underrating how they were dropping off, but also GC Busan had sort of their drop off, right? So the question then becomes, in what way is Runaway different? What is the special essence that these players have that the same thing wouldn't happen to them in the next season?
Just, I guess, an immediate answer to that would be, so I've obviously interacted with lots of teams just last year, talking to them whenever they're around. I was on Shock, and this team is feels very different in the sense that they actually feel like a family. And I think that's kind of I think maybe a lot of people say that, but don't actually know what it means. Whereas kind of when I interact with these guys, it's they all feel kind of like brothers. in a sense. So I think that you're less likely to see kind of internal drama and stuff like that with this team. And
I don't know what kind of family you had, mate, but I have a sister. And
okay, I think that you're more likely to see internal drama, let's say, resolved in a quick manner, right? Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
I think part of that, like that family piece, right, is, sure, maybe drama comes up, but they deal with it more efficiently.
Yeah.
And there's also like that healthy amount of discourse where it's like you kind of know that's always an avenue. Rather than the professional, like maybe I don't speak up or say something because this is my job and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
To sort of spin the analogy along, right? If Runaway is a family, I think it's fair to say that at least in public perception, mom and dad are now out of the picture because Flowerwind and Rana, of course, are still running Runaway in Korea. Do you think that is something that you need to be wary of and fill these roles for? Like, is it something you're conscious of?
It's obviously like a hard role to fill. I mean, we'll do our best, and I think that they're all like, even though. How do I phrase this? I think like even though they work kind of like family, they're all also adults and kind of like understand, they're on a different team now, and like it's not going to be the same as
Beverly, but yeah.
Yeah, he did just turn 18, I believe. So, I mean, they're all still going to talk to Flowervin and Runner and over Discord or whatever. It's just going to be like, I guess, this is a more professional environment, perhaps. But yeah, me, Yangwon, Pajion, who are the coaches, will obviously try and like, help out where we can with that role.
Did you get any specific tips from Rana and Flowerwind? Like some potential?
I have spoken to
deal with Cactus.
Yeah, I've spoken to Runner a bit about it, like not really advice, just like reaching out, seeing what each player kind of likes, and I guess some advice. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can't really speak too much on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the thing is, I also have experience kind of dealing with players because we all live together on Shock as well, and so I spoke to those players quite a bit. So I mean, I think that there's the experience that I bring from Overwatch League that can help out as well.
So we're going into season 2 right now, obviously, and you were an analyst for the San Francisco Shock in season 1. What was the biggest thing that you took away from season 1 as you transitioned to kind of a coaching and, at least according to your Twitter bio, a coordinator role inside the Vancouver Titans? Like, what's the biggest thing that you've taken away so far that you think kind of gives? I think, Yiska, this was your question, but like, what kind of, do you think that experience is a significant advantage? Because we've talked about that from the player perspective, but we haven't really talked about that from like the coach, analyst perspective.
I think it's actually really important for coaching staffs, just because in Overwatch League for 20 weeks, we were grinding 2 matches a week. So that means we had to come up with 2 game plans every week, constantly evolve. Also, the meta was constantly changing, yada, yada. That was like, I think, one of the most difficult things about season 1, just having, like, let's say we're playing in stage 4. Let's say New York Excelsior and Philadelphia Fusion. We had that in the same week. Obviously, 2 pretty different teams, in my opinion. Like, one of them is very DPS focused. One of them is very teamwork focused. We had to prepare for both of them, have different plans for both of them. Like, just stayed up all night for both of those matches, preparing game plans. And the players also had to be very adaptive in the sense that they had to be able to work with us and change their game plans as well. So that's kind of an experience that I can help bring, because in contenders, you're not really used to that. You have a longer time frame to prepare for every team, and you just have less matches overall. The volume is lower. So, I mean, I think I can help at least with that much in terms of preparing strategy and making sure that we know ahead of time how it's going to be. Because in Shock, we didn't realize how, just how, I guess, gruesome the schedule was. Whereas now I know.
Yeah, that's actually one aspect that I see seldom talked about, is not only is the strain less, but it also some teams just were very unfortunate in their scheduling. Like some teams did have a huge amount of trap games. So meaning you have two very good opponents in 1 week where you have to prepare for them. And then the other weeks are sort of more easy. Ideally, you want one strong team and one weak team. So you can go all out on the strong team and just based on your superior mechanics and skill and general teamwork, you just scoot by and just win that, even if you sometimes struggle and have to go to game 5 or whatever, right?
And for example, go ahead.
I think, for instance, a team like London last season had, or Philly as well, had situations where there were a bunch of trap games, which could probably have influenced their record with the league, and then also our perception of their standing overall, and also the inconsistency.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, and I just to add, during stage 4, I just remember stage 4 very vividly, just because of how it went and like, you know, how close we were to making stage playoffs. And I think we were a pretty good team during that time. But there was 1 week where we played against Boston and Fuel in the same week. Literally did not prepare like a single strategy for Boston. We had the same game plan that we used for Fuel. Like we spent a lot of time on Fuel just because they seemed like a pretty good team and didn't prepare at all for Boston and went in with the same game plan and won both of those matches, right? Whereas the next week we played Philly and New York, right? Two of the hardest teams in the league, and we had to prepare very differently for both of them. So I think something that people don't note is how schedule can affect it. And like you said, there are a lot of trap games depending on how the schedule works out. It's just not going to be even. I guess there's no way of doing it. And even, you know, this year it's gotten even, I guess, worse, or there's more, I guess, less parity in the sense that you have divisions mattering in the sense that you play your own division twice and the other division once.
Yeah. Who had the easiest schedule? So I think there could have been an argument made, and I'm not sure how well that holds up because I'm recalling that from memory, but it always felt like Valiant had an advantageous sort of schedule. Not only do you want to have less trap games, which I think they didn't have much, but you also probably want the weaker teams in the start of the stage where typically meta changes come in. So when everyone's not really sure what's going on, fundamentals prevail. And if you have the weaker teams going on there, then while you're learning the meta, you can still get relatively easy wins, right? And
I mean, I'd also like it looked into. Well, I mean, if somebody is trying to do this, but like, there are also the back-to-back games where you get way less time to prepare for the second match. Like, you can't scrim teams after your first match if you have a game the next day, right? And then let's see, like a team like London, who had to consistently play on the Saturday games, where they'd always had to come in early and probably couldn't get a warm-up scrim or whatever it was. So like, there are a lot of just things that you won't notice unless you're part of these teams, I feel like, and those could definitely affect how you perform.
Yeah. I mean, there's the objective general truth where you say, okay, this is probably true for most of the teams, but depending on the team's character, there might be some special thing where maybe trap weeks make the team work harder. Like if it clicks in both teams. Like if you are not a strategic team and the other team can scout you now or whatever, and you just do it by being very performant, that prevails through all matches, right? So yeah, it's definitely something that probably matters more individually, and there's not as much inherent bias in the league format.
Yeah.
Do you think sorry, real quick, because we didn't list this as a question, but do you think the divisional play will be a big factor next season?
It's hard to say, right? Because I think it definitely could, and obviously I'm not a fan of that. I would prefer everybody had kind of like an even schedule, or at least as close to it as possible. And this is not really as close to it as possible. But at the same time, I'm appreciative of like having less matches than we had in season 1, of having more weeks where it's just one match a week rather than 2. Because I think one match a week is way easier to prepare for than 2 is. So, it's kind of like a trade-off. We're not going to have even schedules as the other division, and I guess we got some benefits out of that, but we also, it'll play out during the season, right? Because I think also one of the interesting things about last season is that for the first 3 stages, Atlantic was just far superior to Pacific, where, the strongest team in Pacific was like Seoul Dynasty, and even then they weren't really that strong of a team. Whereas in in Atlantic, you had Excelsior, you had Fusion, you had London, all the. Sorry, I meant Valiant. I guess Valiant was a strong team in Pacific, but in Atlantic, you had just stronger teams overall. But at the end of the year, I think that the balance actually shifted a bit, where I thought that Valiant, and this is stage 4, so this is when New York wasn't. I don't know if they were sandbagging or whatever it was, but they weren't playing very well. I honestly don't think that they had a very good understanding of the meta, and I think that showed in playoffs. But it looked to me like Valiant, Gladiators, and then honestly, like us, Shock, were all very good teams, at least competitive with the top. And I thought that London was struggling, Philly, not struggling, but they were not, they weren't at their stage 2 peak or their playoff peak. And what was it? New York, as I said, New York didn't really look like they had an understanding of the metagame. So I think that there was like a flip there. So I'm interested to see if, a similar pattern arises next year, if metagames determine who the top division is.
Yeah, I do want to pivot a little bit, but this has kind of been an interesting topic. We're all a part of our top secret Discord, right? That we have that nobody else is allowed in, and it's super exclusive. It's like an LA nightclub.
You just leaked the Illuminati, man. Come on.
Yeah, it's like the LA night. It is the Illuminati of Overwatch League communities, but it's actually not at all. It's the Freemasons. It's different. So, and you're in there. Baroy is in there. Yiska's obviously in there. I think I hacked my way into the server a little bit, and one of the things that we've seen is we're seeing some instances of Western coaches, basically. We're saying native English speaking coaches on exclusively Korean teams, like yourself, Baroy, obviously with Toronto. So how is this process working for you? Like, how do you bridge the gap? Not just in terms of like language, but also like culture, because that has to be difficult. I've been to Mexico with speaking very little Spanish, and so therefore I know a lot about multicultural diversity. And I don't at all, actually, is what I'm saying. Is I'm totally ignorant. I'm totally ignorant of the entire process from a conversational aspect, let alone a coaching aspect and an analytical aspect, and like let's get wins into our jobs aspect.
And by being in Mexico, he means he went to Taco Bell.
Whoa, Taco John's, because those potato olays, by the way. If you've never been to a Taco John's in the United States, by the way, this episode of Tactical Crouch could be sponsored by Taco John's if they would just respond to my emails. So
I think it's pronounced Taco Wands, actually.
My name is John. I know how to pronounce John. My name is John. I know how to spell it. I know how to pronounce it.
You ruined it, dude. Okay.
Fair enough.
All right.
I think it's a little bit different for Baroy because he's working more mainly with like the statistical database, like helping the coaching staff and helping them like form their game plans. And he's working with Bishop, who is bilingual, right? So yeah, his job's obviously going to be hard. I think he's learning Korean as well. But he's doing it kind of in a different way. Whereas right now, what I've been doing, so I'm obviously like trying to learn Korean, but I'm also like a little bit more familiar with the culture in the sense that I lived last year with Architect and Choi Hyobin. My staff was fully Korean, although bilingual, but Junkbuck, Krusty, and 9K, all of them are Korean. And so I spent a lot of time with Korean people. And so I'm kind of using that same framework here in the sense that I'm, speaking a lot with Pajion, Yangwon, and just the staff in general for Vancouver. And as I learn more, I think I'll try and be more hands-on with the players But right now, I'll probably, they have some limited English. I have some limited Korean, so we can communicate a bit without the use of a translator. But, as time goes on, I'll learn more, they'll learn more, and then we'll also have like a translator in place to help out with that.
Do you find that process to be like inefficient? Like, I know it
is definitely inefficient. But at the same time, like, I think I can provide things to the team that are important, right? And so, yeah, you can argue that like it's inefficient to bring on a Western person that can't communicate effectively. But I think that at the end of the day, like, it shouldn't be that big of an issue, especially when I think I'm committed to learning Korean. So
you're the smartest coach in Overwatch, man. Like,
fair enough.
Like,
I didn't say it.
You heard it here first. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is obviously that efficiency factor is a thing. I don't know how many people are like saying, "Oh, we couldn't coach our players because we didn't have time." There's that's definitely an aspect. Like, you're always stretched for time and stuff, but like there's also the aspect of like it's getting the right information out to them, and you need the right brains to be able to do that.
And at the same time, there are also people like Moon who came into the Overwatch League speaking only Korean with a mostly Western roster, right? And that managed to work. So I think that, yes, there is like a level of inefficiency there, but I think I also bring other benefits that outweigh that inefficiency in a sense.
That's why you bought the bed, isn't it?
I didn't buy this bed. It was here. It's an artifact.
But I got the bed. I already got the bed. I'm already ready to go. Like,
trust me, there's some significantly more impressive beds in this house.
No, I need
Yes.
I need Twitter pictures.
They'll come.
Like,
I think a house tour will come.
All right, I need that really bad. Yiska, what else is on your mind, man? I mean, it's picking which question at this point.
What is interesting to me is, like, initially it was just the Runaway Boys, right? And they came over as a unit, but then you also had a late addition to the roster, right? How does Repel sort of slot into the role? What kind of need does he fill that wasn't previously, or what was just the reason for bringing him on?
So the reason we looked at other flex supports is just in case. I think Twilight has a pretty distinctive playstyle, and we wanted somebody else as a backup just in case the meta ever switched, and we needed somebody that was more suited. And so Repel and Twilight have pretty different playstyles, in my opinion. I think Repel is a bit more, I guess, defensively minded. Maybe I don't want to say passive because that sounds like a how do you say it, like a negative term. But I think Twilight is just the more aggressive player with his Zenyatta, with his support in general. So after conducting tryouts, Repel ended up being the person we picked up as, the other flex support. And I think that actually I've been really impressed with him because he's actually improved significantly while he's been working with this team. So I think just depending on the playstyle we're looking to feature, he and Twilight are both very good players.
Ooh, that sounds like there could be a chance which if you're not comfortable with how Twilight is perceived, or you just have never heard of him because you don't care about Contenders Korea, like, I think the vast majority of people who I trust to have an opinion on this think that Twilight was probably the best flex support in performance last year in Contenders. Yeah. Now, okay, potential, some of them are saying Violet, okay, right? But to then put Repel as well, almost like in a position where you can say, okay, maybe there is a meta, or maybe he continues on the trajectory that he's on, that he can rival also the synergy that Twilight has built. That's certainly impressive. And I personally also thought, of course, that he was actually not that bad. I was probably a little bit higher than most people were on him in Element Mystic. Yeah,
and I think honestly, like, there were some weak performances, but I honestly think he improved like considerably. Like, if you look at him at the beginning of his time playing with us, and like now, it's like a completely different player.
And then I guess the other two bench players, I guess. I mean, bench players. You have to say it in a such that because both Stitch and Huxtall are pretty much, like on the forefront of your mind if you think about that roster. Is of course Hurek, but then to me more interestingly Sumin Su, how he has been developing, and if you have sort of given him a new direction, or is he going to do similar stuff that he did in Contenders Korea? Where's that trajectory going?
I guess it's hard to talk about our DPS line without like leaking too much. But I guess what I will say is that
leak it.
What I will say is that we've built up kind of like a rotation, and I think that how can I say this? But no, but I think that our like we built up a DPS rotation. I don't think it's going to be like something staple. Like, you mentioned Hacksaw and Stitch have been with Runaway for quite a long time. Have been playing together for quite a long time. We're starters in the last season of Contenders Korea, but basically we'll just aim to field whatever we think is best, and I guess we'll see when the regular season comes.
Yeah,
we're actually going to start a new podcast called Leak It, where we bring on Overwatch League coaches and analysts and GMs and players. We just ask them questions and try to get them to leak the answers. That's going to be the thing. That's going to be the idea. It mostly is just a bunch of I can't say that, but fair enough.
but
sorry, you said butts. Yeah, man. I mean, here's the thing, and again, Yiska's the hard hitting question guy. Harsha, I'm the softball guy. And here's the thing for you, man. I need to know here. I live like 20 minutes away from the Shock house, and I'm like, I'm gonna be a Shock fan now. My boy Harsha's here now. And then you go to Vancouver, and you're on my show. No one from the Shock is on my show. Why?
Are you trying to get yourself merch, man? What's going on?
What do I need to do for a hoodie? No, I'm just kidding. But I think more than anything, and this is something that we're seeing a lot, we notice there are definitely teams in the Overwatch League who have really passionate fan bases. Runaway obviously did. You're translating that to Vancouver quite a bit. People who maybe haven't followed competitive Overwatch outside of Overwatch League might not know that. Why when all this new merch comes out, why am I buying Vancouver merch is what I want to know. Is why are you going to steal the Shock away from me and say, like, what do you think you have is the best thing going for you guys this season to really
Shock colors are pretty trash.
Shock colors are, there it is.
I mean, their jerseys actually do look better this year, I think. The gray jerseys instead of the traffic cone orange.
Yeah, as long as you're not colorblind. Yeah.
Traffic cone orange. Nice.
I mean, yeah, but I think, I don't know. This is a merch question, right?
So the branding is
Yetis, or do you like, I mean,
sound waves.
Okay, let me say this, because this is something that really bothered me. San Francisco Shock is called Shock because of earthquakes. That's, very common in California, but also NorCal, right? But they have a lightning bolt in their Twitter handle. Like they're not even on their own brand, dude.
No, they're like lightning. Yeah.
Damn.
Oh, dang, dude. Pointing out these inconsistencies.
What kind of branding is that? Let's
logo.
brand to the things that kill us. Great idea.
Yeah, what kind of branding is that? Give me a picture of a Yeti and let's talk Titans. Let's go.
The logo is a. Oh, actually, I've been out of school for a while. I don't know if it's a P wave or an S wave, but it's an earthquake like wave. Like,
yeah,
it's in the logo.
It's also the Golden Gate Bridge.
No, it's not. It's the Bay Bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge is trademarked by Cisco.
Okay. All right. Got me.
They don't even have the main attraction.
Unbelievable. All right, I'm sold. I'll go. I'll be a Titans fan. Yiska, you haven't really said out loud who you
Yiska's a London fan.
Who you cheering for this year? Besides Prophet, yeah, exactly. Besides Prophet, he'll be like, yeah, I want Prophet to win, but like, Who
Fandom is weakness.
So is what is the deflection, by the way?
Weakness.
Deflection is weakness.
Weakness is weakness.
I'm a fan of whoever wins the Overwatch League.
He's a self-admitted fair weather fan.
Of course. Yeah. Dude, all my life.
Really?
You know, like, yeah. It's like when I have a football club in my city, but they were like in third league. I don't care about them. Dude, like Bayern Munich was winning everything back then. So I was a Munich fan for like 10 years. And then they started to drop off, and I was like, I'm already on the Dortmund train.
So you don't have any franchised Overwatch gear?
No.
Not like a hat?
Dude, I've been in esports literally 15 years.
Months. 7 months.
I got one piece of merch because Complexity gave it to me back in the day. And it's a cap.
So what you're saying is that if Harsha sends you some merch, you become a Titans fan.
I might sleep in it. Yeah, maybe.
Might sleep in it. Better than the dude that you sleep in now, man. You can't be comfortable at all. You're not a pajama wearer. Yeah. I know you. You're not a pajama wearer. Yeah. All right.
No. Birthday suit all the way.
Birthday suit all the way. Birthday suit and air conditioner down to like 64 degrees.
You know, I'm closer to Yiska when he sleeps than I've ever wanted to be, just because sometimes when we talk on voice, he just falls asleep and starts snoring.
Oh my God, he does. So in our Illuminati Discord, literally you'll see Yiska sitting in the voice channel by himself, and usually we like pop up then, and like it's an invitation to say hello to the other person. It's the other person saying, "Hey, I want to talk right now," and you go into the Discord, and all you hear is.
It is that loud too.
It is like, dude, that was actually a sound clip. That was just like it did, but it's the same thing. So
on Friday, I'm actually going to find out if I have sleep apnea. No joke.
Do you need any audio
clips? Hear the machine.
Yeah,
we're just gonna hear the machine on voice.
Yeah, I was gonna say if they need audio clips, I think I have some. So
I actually do have some.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I saved one.
How did that never land on Twitter?
It actually helps me sleep.
You're not as ruthless as I was with Joe back in the day.
Yeah, I felt bad. I did just like record you sleeping without your consent.
Jesus. Yeah, I caught Eden once, just like singing to himself in his car, and he didn't realize he was still in voice. That was fun.
That's the most Eden thing I've ever heard.
and he didn't say. He went like da 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 da.
He scattered his way through
Yeah.
Discord. Yeah,
I swear it was even exactly that, because I kept listening to it like on loop. It just got better and better.
And then dancing to it.
Pretty much.
Yeah, we've had some people spend way too much like not know that they're in those voice channels. That's actually how we get most of our leaks, I think. Actually, that's how they come. It's like, oh crap, I was in the voice channel again. Yiska leaks in his sleep.
Yep.
Figuratively and metaphorically. So that's it. I mean, man. Yiska, what other questions we've got? So, Harsha, right? So, coaching the most highly anticipated Overwatch League expansion team right now going into season 2. He's willing to bear it all. Tell you who he likes, who he hates, who are the biggest D-bags in Overwatch League, all that kind of stuff. Like, who do who do you get shouldered in the hallway, that kind of stuff, right?
Dude, look at how he pulls that joke the week after we had to pay on.
I wasn't gonna do it. I didn't want to get shouldered, dude. Dude, David would shoulder me through the screen, man.
So next week he's gonna ask about DC, I think.
Oh,
if we're sticking to the trend.
Oh,
1 week after.
Sure.
Are we having something?
Put it on your schedule
next week.
Come on.
We gotta.
All right, let's continue with topics.
My brain is nervous.
Okay. So there's strong teams, of course, and then there is strategical rivalries or just like brand rivalries, and also like strategical mismatches, just what your team is like. Is any particular team where you're like, okay, so we are more afraid of this team than their ultimate placing will probably warrant? Like, for instance, are you afraid of losing maybe the Canada
I see. No,
comparison, right?
not the Toronto one. To
All right.
Burrow's dismay. I know for last year it was Fuel, specifically Stage 4, because we prepped so hard for that match, and we ended up winning, like, I think, reasonably comfortably. But that team, like, had such a distinct style, and they also were, like, yeah, I think everybody was just really scared of Fuel in the sense that they didn't think they were an amazing team, but they thought that their style was hard to beat, kind of, and that they performed pretty well on stage. So I know for sure that would have been my answer for last year. For this year,
I mean, of course, it's hard to say because you don't even know like what the strategical elements will shake out to be. But maybe something that gave you stress in terms.
I'll give you this answer then, because this is narrative based. This isn't like
Sure.
based or anything like that. But we are Shanghai's second match of the season, so they play Hangzhou and then they play us. But they're our first match of the season. Really don't want to lose that, especially if they lose to Hangzhou, because then we give Shanghai their first ever Overwatch League victory. So that's something I don't want to happen.
Yeah, I can see that. What about when you play Shock?
Shock, we actually played them in the second week of the season, I believe, or maybe I think it's the second week of the season. So they're our third match. Yeah, I don't really know. For them, they've also when I was with Shock and they were coaching Goats specifically, like the way it was played was very different. It's like evolved quite a bit. So I don't really, I can't really talk about their style in a sense.
But that should be a special match for you, right?
Yeah, obviously I want to win that. Will be a hard match, I think, because they're a really good team and they've been practicing for a long time. But I guess that is a match that I would really like to win. What else is there?
Yeah, it's
I mean, what I was going to say is the Shanghai one has the added relevance of being like the Kongdu runaway rematch.
Oh yeah,
but other than that, I think those two are the ones.
What's your take on that? Because of course, Kongdu was sort of ripped apart and picked for their parts in some regard, but then also 4 of them landed on 4 or 5 of them landed on Shanghai Dragons.
I think 5.
Do you think that whatever made KDP good last season is still with Shanghai Dragons because they got most of the parts, or do you think Decay and Roar are like the crown jewels of that roster?
I think Decay is the crown jewel of the roster. I think that Shanghai will be a reasonable team just because they preserve their synergy. They have some good additions. Like, I think Fearless is actually a good main tank, despite what we saw in Overwatch League Season 1. I think he's talented, and I think that main tank is a role that, first of all, it seemed like he had no coaching. Secondly, it seemed like the team had no strategy. So, like, those are 2 things that are just going to make him look really bad. And he is a very aggressive player, so looked even worse because of that. So I think Shanghai can definitely still be good. They lost their best player, but I think DM is also quite good. So in a sense, like, I think it'll be similar, at least in level, to the Kongdu roster we saw last season. Now, at the same time, I think that Kongdu was also helped during that season of Contenders by the meta, where you could play tankier styles and get away with it. So, and also, like, Ding got to play as Pharah quite a bit. Yeah, cool. I don't really know. I think that they lost the crown jewel, but they still gained quite a few good pieces.
Yeah.
Without leaking too much, and I guess it's also something you have to take in mind with how other rosters probably have their strength, but what is like the meta that you would like let's say you're in a scenario where you're safe for playoffs, you go into playoffs, what is the meta you would want for your team? Just like what do you think that team is best at in terms of archetypical meta composition?
I think people would expect me to say goats just because that's the meta that ended up being the. But I mean, I actually don't think we're that meta dependent in the sense that I think Bumper's quite good on both Winston and Reinhardt. I think that Janu is going to be able to play whatever flex we have. Hacksaul's actually, I think his versatility is underrated in the sense that he's a pretty good Brig player, and he's pretty good Genji, pretty good Pharah. So like I think he should be able to play, and actually he has a pretty good Tracer, albeit maybe a bit aggressive, but he's good at it. So I'm not too worried about meta actually. I think that I think that if it's a dive meta or if it's what it is now or like hits like Widow Tracer or something like that, I think we should be fine. So personally, it's not really about, I guess, what would benefit the team most, because I think we'll be fine. Like, I think this is actually a team that's quite meta resilient, and they've been together for so long, so it kind of makes sense. But I don't want to really see goats in playoffs because I just don't want it to still be around.
Yeah, yeah. This just means we have 4 stages of goats. Yeah, sounds awful.
Yeah, it's almost like the resilient teams. I think they would like a lot of volatility because that would, like, if you, for instance, play goats up until stage 3, and that's where almost playoff spots are already locked in. Then you switch to dive. You get into playoffs. You're a very versatile team. You can play goats and dive. That doesn't mean the goats teams that qualified based on goats are still that good in playoffs.
Yeah,
like a Boston, for instance. And then you can just farm them pretty easily, right? So the resilient teams really just wait for their turn and like have a huge advantage if the meta ever is super volatile.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So I put the question out to Twitch here, and I just said, you know what? Rapid fire your questions, and we'll ask Harsha. You just feel free. If it's a no comment, just say butts. Okay, that's all we need. Okay. That's all we need to know.
Wait. Let's do this. Who's going to be the first signed player for the Vancouver Contenders team?
Butts. There we go.
Butts. New player coming
Confirmed.
up.
Yeah, it's a
from
name
Vancouver.
Change. Butts.
His first name Seymour. Yeah, good one. Simpsons 1990.
Simpsons reference. Yeah,
that's when that came. Yeah, it's like, I mean, at least a 25-year-old reference at that point. That's how relevant I'm gonna be a great dad. My dad jokes are on point. So here's I didn't fact check this at all. This one's from X Silver. It says, a while ago you mentioned tank duos are overrated.
Yes, tank duos as a concept are overrated in my opinion.
Why do you think they come up so much and aren't as big of a factor in a team's performance?
No, I don't think tanks aren't a big factor in teams' performance. I think they're a huge factor in teams' performance. I think the concept of a tank duo is reductive, because if you saw, one of the best styles of playing Winston was not playing with the diva, it was playing with the Tracer, right? That when people always talk about tank synergy, like, I think to myself sometimes, yes, diva and Winston need to work together, or Zarya and Ryan, or what. Yeah, I guess it's more of a concept of Zarya and Ryan, but diva and Ryan, or whatever it is. In general, though, throughout Overwatch League Season 1, the bigger duo is, in my opinion, the Winston Tracer duo, because that's generally doing the work together.
I agree.
And people were constantly talking about Diva Winston when in general, like, maybe Diva was helping Winston get ready for a dive, but she's not working with him in general. So I feel like people mention it just because it's a convenient way to classify them, because both Winston and Diva are tanks, but I don't think they work as a duo in practice.
Yeah. There's another concept that you questioned, which is the
supportive DPS.
Yes. Can you elaborate on that?
I think a supportive DPS is something that can exist. I don't think fucking EQO is not sorry, I don't know if I can curse, but
just let me know next time so I can but
there we go. EQO is not a supportive DPS. Like, I hate that narrative so much.
No, he's not. He played some supportive characters for a while.
Sure. But when
Brigitte
people say, like,
supportive DPS,
I mean, she is as a DPS, yes. When people say when people say EQO is a supported DPS, like I don't understand what they're talking about. Like in game, they're literally saying that because Carpe is a good player. Like that's all I can see in game. Because when you look at the way Philly plays, they actually play considerably around EQO and his ult timings, his skill timings, and like they feed him a lot of resources. You'll notice he's constantly on the verge of death, but he's receiving a lot of the mercy pockets and stuff like that. Whereas Carpe is more playing on his own. So he's kind of working off to the side and not really taking the resources. EQO is a carry DPS player. And it's weird to me that people call him a supported DPS. Like, I really hate that classification just in terms of EQO.
Yeah. I think in a lot of people's minds, this almost means like the guy that frags less.
Yeah. I think
not even frags less, but also frags less skillfully, or like something where you say, oh wow, that flick or whatever, that's like the guy that's not the supported DPS. But yeah,
in my opinion, I think it's because, and I think Carpe is, you know, a more skilled player, but maybe only slightly because EQ is really good. And I think that, yeah, just because he's not as flashy, people call EQ the supported DPS, when in reality it's not like a true classification.
Do you think then it would be fair to say that Haksal has been a supportive DPS for a while?
I think it depends when, but like I think he's such an aggressive player that it's hard to call him like a supportive DPS.
Or even during the Apex days when Stitch was... No, I mean Stitch was always very... But the supportive DPS archetype is more like it. I think it spawned from Eska.
Eska
right?
is the one that kind of popularized it. If I had to think about who supportive DPS were...
I think one name that comes to mind now, for instance, for Toronto Defiant, is certainly Stella would be one.
Certainly.
Maybe even Asher last season.
In general, it's hard. Maybe Dante at points.
Yeah. What is like the definition of a supportive DPS, do you think?
To me, I think it's just somebody that's constantly focusing on enabling another aspect of the team and not really like... But see, even that is kind of just a weird definition. It's just such a weird concept, I think.
Yeah.
Especially when in Overwatch League, what you would have like pretty consistently is like, let's say, Widow Tracer or Genji Tracer. Like the Tracer's not really supportive, is she? She's in let's say an ideal play, right? The Tracer's working with the Winston to get frags, the Genji's getting pocketing, and then playing off his ult timings to get frags. Like neither of them is being supportive, but one of them, they're both kind of enabling each other. It's just a weird... I just don't like that concept in general.
Yeah, I think also just generally the idea that a Tracer player can be supportive feels like that can work, but it's sort of like the lower tier.
It's like a bad Tracer player.
yeah, exactly. It's like if you don't have the mechanics...
You didn't have to look right at me when you said that, by the way, Harsha. That was kind of rude. It's like
You're actually on the opposite side of my screen from where I look.
Bad Tracer player. John. Yeah.
No, it's just so, like if your Tracer doesn't have the mechanics to win the duels, then maybe they're enough to keep your flex support alive or something.
I think this is something that... Oh, actually, that's something that Soon was very... and maybe early season Soon I can talk about, because he changed it a bit. But I know that something that I paid attention to a lot, just because I know players talked about it, is Soon used to be somebody that really worked hard on protecting the flank actually from other Tracers and making sure they weren't able to really constantly harass the backline. So, I mean, obviously evolved as a player, became more of like the Widow player, and I don't think that applies really anymore, but maybe that's something you can classify as supportive because he was protecting the flank.
I mean, in that sense, you would almost have to say Sebiobi is supportive, right?
Yeah. Because
he keeps the Tracers at bay, goes for these duels, doesn't take... I mean, yeah, he gets an orb, but famously. But, like, yeah, I think the archetypes which we have... I think there definitely are different Tracer playstyles. Yes. I just don't think our definitions or, like, terms for them are very accurate or very intuitive to people who try to understand what someone does based on what we call it, right?
And maybe there's another word for it, but I don't think supportive is a word, right? Maybe it's like we can say
Bad.
no. Well, I mean, we can say like proactive versus, I guess, reactive. Maybe that's a better way. Just because if you're proactive, you're doing something, you're trying to do something to the enemy team. Reactive, you're kind of, I don't know. Maybe that's the best way to do it. But I think supportive DPS is just kind of a weird concept in general.
Yeah.
So here's one from Hey, it's Bro Lock Light. That's a lot of syllables for a Twitch name, dude. Like, great now, but if you're ever gonna try and stream with it, change it. He says, they say, which of the original teams had its worst off season?
Has to be Boston, I think, right? I don't know if there's a better. I mean, people might say Mayhem. People might say Mayhem, but I think it has to be Boston.
Outlaws?
No, Outlaws picked up Dante. I think that's an improvement. Whereas I think Boston,
it's an improvement, but it still stands still.
But look at Boston. They lost Striker, potentially best player, potentially best DPS in Overwatch League. They lost Neko, one of the, and to be fair, they have Aim God, so they have a backup. But I think Neko is consistently a top 3 flex support in the league. They what was it? Like they picked up Color Hex and who is it? Blaze. Don't think that they have the same value as Striker, to be honest, either of them. They picked up, who is it? The second main tank, but I don't mean Axiom, but you know, I don't know what he brings over Gamsu. Alanao, I mean, I don't know. He's a good player, but I don't think he's like really that considerably like a step up. I think Boston literally just got worse.
All right, Boston fans, this next 20 seconds is for you.
I've already been like, I've had my own Boston run-ins because I made a video about how I didn't think that they were going to be that good. And this was before I knew that they were coached by Krusty. I think there's one other player I didn't know was on the team. I think I might not have been Striker. It was Kalias, yeah. I know Kalias I knew for sure was not on. But there's one other player. I think it was Striker. But to be fair, I underrated Striker at the time too. Yeah. So it really wouldn't have mattered. But I still get people commenting on my Boston video like every couple weeks. Like, oh, look at this. Like, even though I think most people thought Boston was going to be a pretty weak team going into season 1.
They shattered expectations, right? And like that's cool. And most of the conversations I see happening about Boston right now is like, trust the system, not the players.
Yes.
And it's a system that Huck put in place and not Krusty, and that Huck is capable. If it was Krusty, Huck is capable of keeping that going on throughout the thing.
This is kind of like the prove it season for Boston, in my opinion, where first of all, Huck has to prove that it was him and not Krusty. Yes. Secondly, he needs to prove that his kind of method of picking up players that are maybe not scouted as much or underrated and turning them into like role players that can prop up the system, if that works. So I think this season is really important, and I think if Boston finishes maybe top 12, I think that says a lot about kind of their approach to Overwatch.
Dude, plus three points in my power rankings if they make playoffs next year. Just no matter what, no matter where I put them, I'm just gonna add 3 to it.
Yeah,
that'll be my courtesy push. But Boston fans, it's okay. You can be an underdog and be happy and not just be bitter.
But the thing is, I saw you having your run-ins too. But the thing about them is it's just that, like, to me, it's so. And I understand that there are disagreements in the team and stuff like that, things that people won't know about. But it's so crazy that they're giving up Striker when I think he was such an important part of that team. Just like, I don't know. This is something that Brad mentioned on Oversight, I believe. But like, Boston was one of the best Game 5 teams in the world. And I think that it came to them having the best tracer, or potentially the best tracer in the world, where, King of the Hill maps are very skewed towards teams that have good tracer Winston like duos. So yeah. And somebody in the chat said Striker wanted to leave ? Probably did, but I think a lot of people in Boston might have wanted to leave. Didn't end up leaving.
Yeah. If like you don't understand the situation, if a player wants to leave, that doesn't mean he can unless he literally retires for that season. So
yeah, unless he gives up the entirety of season 2, he could not leave, or somebody bought him out, and somebody bought him out. So
yeah.
Shock.
By the way,
pulled out the checkbook.
I just read your tweet.
They cashed in that Harsha money.
I just caught up on your tweet about methodologies and like that. This is much more interesting. Like everyone who comments on your video about Boston doesn't get it. Completely missed the point. Because what you should be doing is you look now at the power rankings, you look now at the methodology, and then you say now what is wrong with it. You can't say after the horse race, oh, this was so obvious. Look at this horse. Like how muscular it was. Of course it was going to win. No, like that is not how it works, my dudes. Like now, right now, what's wrong with my methodology? And then we can figure it out then.
We lost Harsha, so what we're gonna do essentially is we're going to put words in his mouth for the next 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Who's the worst team in Overwatch League, Harsha? Butston.
God, that was so terrible. Also, his camera froze at him smiling, so you can all say all the atrocities. Like
I know. What are you thinking right now, Harsha?
Butts.
Yeah, it's basically about it. Yeah, it's basically about it. We'll see if he comes back. Otherwise, Harsha's just a good dude, Yiska. Like, he's gonna bring it to you straight.
Sure.
What he can bring to you, anyways. He's not a leaker though. Unlike you, who have lots of stuff to leak, and you're gonna leak them on this show. Eventually, we're gonna break you down, dude. And you're gonna start leaking that.
I'm waiting.
I don't know if he's coming back. All right, he's back now. His chair is empty. He's been raptured.
He just ran down 3 flights of stairs to get to the basement where the router is, and now he has to come back, and that's a full cardio workout.
Man, he's just like walking in like a badass over here.
No, they're cleaning up the house, obviously, and disconnected my internet.
Gotta clean out those Cat 5 jacks. No bugs.
But I assume what you were saying was something along, like I cut out when you were talking about how people don't get it if they're commenting on my video. But I think what makes kind of Boston's run in season 1 impressive is that people all over underrated them, and then they proved it wrong. Like that adds to the narrative. They weren't just suddenly a top 3 team.
No, your reaction as a commenter should be, wow, this was the accepted consensus of experts in the scene, and they somehow found something. Wow, is Boston interesting in that? And what they taught us about Overwatch. Not, wow, are you an idiot? So obvious. Haha.
Yeah, and obviously I think some people understand that, but I think that it seems like a very large amount of people don't. And so, I get it. Like, it adds... It's fun to shit on people, but in the end, I think that they don't understand that people are adding to the narrative, or there's a narrative building process going around when people underrate a team and then they overperform.
Well, and everybody wants to also be like the "I told you so."
Yeah, even though they never made any predictions.
I have 20 Twitter accounts with about 200 to 500 people following me, all of which have made claims about one of the 20 teams winning Overwatch League, so that I can then tweet every single one of the other people who said that they wouldn't do that or rated them lowly. And I'm a god, basically, is what I'm saying. So right now, you know me as KickedTripod because a couple years ago I guessed well. Who knows what you'll know about me from a year, or what you'll know me as a year from now. I might have to swap over. Your
Twitter account might have 200 followers.
It's true.
It's all of a sudden.
Yeah, what happened? What changed? Yeah, nothing. Yeah. This feels like a good spot. Yiska, feel like a good spot for you? Anything else you want to hit Harsha with? All right.
I got my internet reconnected for no, I'm kidding.
Well, let's go ahead and get out of here then. Before we do, though, Harsha, I mean, tell people where they can find you, what you're working on, anything else that you want to, kind of put out there before we get out of here.
What I'm working on is the Vancouver Titans, I guess.
Good.
We'll try and win as much as we can. Otherwise, you can just find me at GG Harsha on like everything, I think. Just about. So, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yiska, what about you, man? Anything coming up? Any more thinking it overs?
Yeah, I gotta get on that train. I have a couple of pretty good topics in mind. I just gotta get doing it, and then, yeah.
Cool. As for me, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, and of course, find the show anywhere you can search for Overwatch League Daily or Tactical Crouch. So make sure to do that. Make sure to follow on Twitch and to subscribe on YouTube, comment. Tweet us at OWL Daily Show. I mean, the show is literally everywhere. So you can find kind of everything that you could possibly want for the show, whether you want to listen to it, watch it, 2x speed as DPay does, or 0.25 speed as Harsha does. So he literally likes to listen to us at 0.25 speed because can't get enough. Take 8 hours of my day, he says.
Yeah.
So, Harsha, thanks. Yeah, go ahead. What?
We should get into a habit of just talking fast and then slow, and then maybe just so
just to harass
the speed doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. I definitely like that. I think that would be a really good idea to be able to go ahead and do that and then make it really annoying for those people who do that. Thank you guys again for watching. We'll see you guys next time for Tactical Crouch. Joe should be back. Tell him you miss him. Tell him you miss him.
I miss him.
I'd rather have Harsha.
All right.